Hello, and welcome back to the Accedo Playback Podcast, the podcast discussing industry news, trends, and tech advancements in the streaming and OTT industry. I'm your host, Neil Van Zyl. Today, we're going to cover a few topics. We're going to discuss the increase in digital third spaces, some trends in digital sports, and lastly, since this is our first episode of the year, we'll discuss some takeaways from CES. Joining us today is none other than Mrugesh Desai, Accedo's VP of North America. Mrugesh, thanks for coming back on.
Always a pleasure to be on here, Neil. Good to do this again.
Yeah, best way to start 2026 is having you come back. So we're glad to see it. Well, let's start with the first one, right? Obviously, you went to CES. How was the show for you? Any takeaways you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, great show as always. Probably my 12th or 13th. I'm losing count, but always great to be there. First thing in the new year, catch up with industry colleagues. Outside of our industry, actually, I caught up with a bunch of ex-BlackBerry colleagues who started a new company called Clicks, and actually that was one of the more trendy products at the show. They announced what's called the Clicks Communicator, I believe, which is a hark back to the BlackBerry form factor, but it's meant to be sort of a secondary device that you can use for more work or productive oriented tasks with the physical QWERTY keyboard. So that brought back a lot of nostalgia from when I used to attend CES with BlackBerry. But overall, productive show and definitely some interesting insights from the media and entertainment industry as we enter 2026.
Yeah, it's interesting to see some of this pushback to secondary or enhancement devices away from just the standard mobile format. I mean, we just saw recently the Brick release as well, where it's meant to kind of reduce the capabilities of your phone so you can get back to working.
Yeah, things come back full circle sometimes, and I think you get trapped with nostalgia. And I think also from a form factor perspective, a lot of people do miss that sort of tactile feel when you're using your device. So I may have a lot of bias from being at BlackBerry for a number of years, but I was glad to see those types of products back in the market.
Very cool. All right. So, I mean, outside of generative AI, which has obviously been the dominant theme for the last few years, but was there anything else that you saw at CES that was driving change? Obviously, I mean, this industry is dominated by long-term trends, and the last 5 years have been pretty aggressive disruptions. So, what else is changing? What else is happening?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to meet with several extended reality device platform manufacturers, and beyond gaming, they seem to be prioritizing media and entertainment use cases more and more significantly entering this year. So, without naming names, because I've had to sign a few NDAs to see these products, it was quite interesting to see that many of them are starting conversations actively with all the tier one OTT services, with seemingly a focus more on the sports side of things. They believe with the 6 degrees of freedom, being able to launch video experiences in VR would just be a much more immersive fan experience. So, I mean, this is a hypothesis that we've had for several years, and we've, of course, put out several pilot projects with customers. But to see most of the XR manufacturers focusing on these types of discussions with us, I think means 2026 is probably likely to see more and more mass market deployments of those types of OTT experiences in more interesting environments with 6 degrees of freedom.
Well, just reaffirming what you said previously, where device fragmentation isn't getting better; it's aggravating. Just more and more platforms are coming into the fold.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, we repeat the same conversations year after year at CS, right? Customers sort of complaining, I guess, about how fragmented the industry is, how many device platforms their audiences are on, and it continues to increase. It continues to increase in the traditional sort of OTT device spectrum with new smart TV OS popping up. And then also, with the VR devices, there's more and more players in the market. So, I think my favorite stat to sort of reference this is the fact that the average U.S. consumer is on 7 disparate OTT services subscribed to at any given time, but they also have, I think, half a dozen disparate device platforms in their household, from using their mobile device, tablets, connected devices, the smart TVs, and That's why Accedo continues to, I guess, be relevant in the industry. We're solving that fragmentation challenge, which is only increasing for our customers.
Another thing that's been noticeable recently is the influx of non-traditional businesses venturing into OTT and media and entertainment in general. What do you think is causing this sort of push from different regions or different areas?
Yeah, great observation. And we've both seen an influx of new opportunities for Excedo to work on from all types of verticals, micro drama verticals, sports direct to consumer, more traditional long form content services that are getting venture capital funded. Yeah, hard to put a pin on why this is happening. I think for a couple of years, obviously, as the market cooled and many of the established services struggled towards profitability, I think new funding towards greenfield ideas definitely dried up. So I think a backlog effectively formed of all these entrepreneurs pitching the VC community. But it looks like entering 2026, some of these ideas are coming to fruition in terms of getting funding, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, if I had to pinpoint one vertical that seems to be really taking off, it seems to be the micro drama vertical. Um, this has become commonplace in Asia. A lot of consumers are watching that type of content, but we're seeing new entrants try to bring that type of content to North America and Western Europe. So pretty exciting and something to watch out for.
Yeah, I like that you called out microdramas. Interesting enough is I think a lot of this growth once again is coming in the niche areas, not just the standard entertainment SVODs or AVODs and whatnot. Uh, on top of them being just these sort of streaming services, I've noticed a lot of it is also creating a drive to have tertiary social experiences, either a full social media platform within, or even just messaging and communication, co-viewing. So it's been interesting, this rise of digital third spaces. And just for our listeners, digital third spaces are basically just online environments that can act as some sort of gathering space for a community outside of the major players. But very fascinating to see. And I'm wondering, maybe you have some other thoughts on this, but is the desire to kind of keep everyone within your platform a data play, just user engagement? What do you think is pushing for these sort of multi-faceted applications?
I think it just harks back to improving search and discovery, right? That's been the single biggest challenge I think for services to stand out to the users. With more and more influx of content, it's just harder for the users to figure out what they want to watch at any given moment, and that leads to a lot of user fatigue and frustration. Um, so these platforms that are encouraging social watching, encouraging sharing of playlists between their users, I think are really just trying to solve for that. And you see some great examples in the industry who are not actually doing the streaming themselves, but a platform like Letterbox, for example, right? The idea that you can curate your own watch list, and then you can look at your friends as recommended lists, and that leads to click through behavior on various OTT services. If you could bring that type of ideation into your own platform, I think it's pretty powerful. So we're obviously seeing these kinds of requests from some of our customers. Yeah, probably another trend to watch out for this year. But yeah, I think fundamentally this is just the industry realizing they need to solve search and discovery in more and more novel ways.
About a couple of weeks ago, I recently just passed 1,000 ratings on Letterboxd. I was pretty happy about that, but then I realized maybe I should maybe take a break too. Probably a few too many there.
I'm a newbie, but yeah, my wife and her siblings got me onto it a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, I just kind of sat down and over 3 hours, I think I added 200 movies or something off the dome, and yeah, many of them my wife's family haven't watched, which may say a lot about me, but yeah, some interesting recommendations are coming through from what I'm seeing on their lists, and I found the app interface really intuitive, really easy to use. So, looking forward to continuing with that.
It is great again because search and discovery is quite a difficult issue to solve, and to have these sort of secondary applications that focus purely on content recommendations and discovery are probably pretty beneficial for the industry. Another interesting topic here that we can talk about. So we've seen a lot of discussion around mergers and acquisitions and different approaches. So are major players better off adding niche content to their services to kind of compete with some of these rising digital third spaces, or should they keep this IP as separate brands? To give an example, Warner Brothers has invested in Unrivaled instead of onboarding that sort of content onto their platform, but Netflix is adding podcast format directly to their platform. Which do you have thoughts on why they might be taking different approaches, or which one might play better for them?
I think, frankly, if I knew the answer to this, you and I would go build out our own OTT service and be really, really successful. But I think if we just look at it from a pros and cons perspective, right? Consolidating a number of different verticals in terms of your content offering on your service, could play out well for your users, right? That you become a one-stop shop for movies and series and live sports and podcasting, and you basically become a brand associated with any of the content consumption. But coming back to what we just discussed about search and discovery, suddenly your platform has a huge volume of content. It might be quite difficult for the user to pin down what they want to watch, what they want to listen to, how they want to interact with your service. So that sort of influx in terms of a lot of content, I think, becomes difficult for users to sometimes navigate. Um, I think the pro of the disparate brands, right, is you become a very clear value proposition for your end user, right? We are a brand who are associated with live sports, and specifically we focus on these genre of sports. Or we're a brand who focuses only on micro dramas, and we become that associated app for you to use. So I think the pros and cons with each approach. And yeah, I want to be a very humble passenger to all this, and just kind of absorb how it plays out. And hopefully, for our own customers, as we sort of see the data points on consolidation versus keeping these disparate brands, we can provide more data driven advice on how they should develop their own strategy. But I think this is happening predominantly with the tier ones, right? I mean, just to even afford having rights across the board for movies and live sports and what have you, it's going to be limited to the biggest services. But let's just see how this plays out. And as we've seen with prior merger and acquisitions and consolidating to one direct to consumer service, oftentimes that eventually also ends up breaking up again as they think about best ways to monetize and engage their users. So no real opinion other than to say I definitely see the pros and cons either way.
Not to mention the cost of the tech stack required if you're really going across all these sorts of formats. I mean, advertising alone, what you have to kind of discuss is quite vast.
Exactly. And I mean, the other aspect of this is even from an operational perspective, think about end user support when you have both live sports and movies and other types of content. To ramp up your operational team who might have been used to running a VOD service to now handling live sports and the associated issues when there's even a second of buffering. It is definitely a leveling up of how you conduct your business and your operations. So if you're going to step into this realm, I think you need to do a lot of pilot projects and get to a point where you've got a lot of battle scars before really going the full 9 yards with multiple live events every year.
Speaking of live events, we've obviously seen a bit more of an increase in, I guess, R&D investment or just investment in general into the media space. Are you seeing some of that focus towards a certain vertical? Is it largely going towards sports or anything else along those lines, or have you seen any trends on that side?
We're definitely seeing more of an influx with sports opportunities. You're at Accedo, and obviously we work on services across the content spectrum. So it definitely seems the sports providers are a little bit more bullish in terms of audience expansion. Many of them actually focus their initial services on a subset of device platforms, mobile, maybe a couple of connected TVs in the home. But now we're seeing a new wave where they're starting to prioritize expansion onto smart TVs, and we're also encouraging them to make experiments on XR devices. So we are seeing more investments with audience growth as it relates to device platform expansion with live sports services. I think, you know, and as an aside, many of the conversations I had at CES with customers or even prospects has revolved around operational efficiency. So, we definitely have quite a few customers who are not thinking about expanding the service or launching new device platforms, but asking us questions about how can they make their current operational setup more efficient. Have they over allocated towards back end engineering or front end engineering or UX design? Are they too internally reliant? Are they too vendor reliant? Are they ways to streamline this? And that has definitely led to projects on our side that perhaps are not the most innovative from a technology perspective, but we have innovated the business model for those customers, innovated to help them become more operationally efficient. So I think that is still going to be a very important trend as the services continue to push towards better profitability this year. So it's a lot of the established players who've already launched on the full suite of devices. That's definitely been a key topic of discussion with us.
Even just an AWS bill or an Azure bill can skyrocket pretty quickly. So just taking a look at every portion and just seeing where you can find cost efficiencies is in its own way an innovation.
Exactly, and I mean, I think no podcast is complete without any reference to AI. But the application of AI on the velocity of coding or the quality of coding. I mean, that's obviously a very key conversation we're having with all of our customers, and we're already starting to implement that aggressively. So that will also lead to some cost reduction in how services are deployed and how services are run in the long term.
Yeah, like you said, we got to bring it up at some point. Speaking of AI, was there any sort of key area, or maybe it was just operational, that you've heard from prospects or customers that they're trying to focus their use cases for it?
Definitely had some conversations around production ready generative video. There are definitely some studios and some of our customers are starting to look into that. There's obviously a lot of chatter about synthetic talent and synthetic avatars. So that seems to be accelerating, and you've seen the likes of Disney and others starting to talk about that more openly. But I think the area where we're seeing a much more practical application is agentic AI use cases towards personalization of services. We've worked with backend providers in the space who've already been doing some of this over the last couple of years. But I think from a tech stack perspective, when we look at OTT services, that's probably where most of the more practical use cases are coming to light. But yeah, there was chatter about the more interesting aspects around content production and leveraging AI towards that. But obviously, there will be some blowback from the human talent and all the fantastic people who've been behind producing movies and series and other types of content over the years. So there will be, I guess, a point of reckoning when something will need to be figured out in terms of regulation. So let's see how that plays out. But I think to me, it seems the idea of a human talent being assisted by AI content generation is inevitable. It just comes down to how do you sort of skew it one way or the other, and of course our user is going to be receptive to this. People going to the movies, people watching this content over streaming services. Are they ready for that? Do they want that, or do they still want this to be a very human experience where people behind the lens are capturing real talent who've honed their craft over years and years and years? So let's see how that plays out.
Yeah, The Economist put out an interesting piece where they were talking about human enjoyment of AI-made content, and one of the things that they found was if a user knows it's AI, they enjoy it, but they enjoy it less than they would if it was man-made. So just there's obviously still room for growth there because they acknowledge that it's still something that's worthwhile, but finding the balance is definitely going to be interesting. I think that's all that we had for you today. So if there's anything else that you want to mention before we wrap up.
No, I think just looking forward to the year. But thanks for having me on, and chat to you soon.
That's it for this episode. Big thanks to Mrugesh for joining. I know he's got a busy schedule. As always, he brings some of the best insights there is. If you like what you heard, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions about the episode or anything else, feel free to reach out to us at playback.podcast@accedo.tv or send me a message on LinkedIn. That's all for this time, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.